Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have the opportunity to kind of close out the session the third part of this three-part series that we've been hosting over the past couple of weeks. As some of you may recall, we went over prospecting, we went over sales calls, and here we are talking about retaining, renewing, and upselling. And I couldn't think of a better time of year to be having this webinar as we are in the throes of Q4. And it's so important to be having these conversations with your advertisers, looking into the new year, looking into new fiscal years, and just getting ahead of these sometimes more difficult conversations.
It's contract season, right? And it's Q4, which we love to call Q5 around here, just because it's so busy and so much business happens in Q4. And Caroline, it's great to be here with you real quick. Why don't you give the people a quick briefing of who you are?
Happy to do so. So my name is Caroline Kiernan. I'm a sales manager here at AdSeller, and I've been here for just over 3 years. And my background is pretty diverse. I started my advertising career in print, and I was able to do that for a couple of years. And as I've transitioned over to the digital world, I've had the opportunity to work with partners of all backgrounds, which has helped me become more comfortable with everything out there, including, radio, TV, anything you can imagine. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, my name's Chris Dolge. I've been in advertising for over 15 years. Started in newspaper and magazine, so a lot of print early on. Kind of added on radio and television to my experience. Really got into digital marketing, and kind of felt the momentum heading that way. And so I wanted to really make sure that I had my finger on the pulse of where digital marketing was heading. So really looking forward to talking with you guys today. And I think, pairing digital marketing with your owned and operated assets, your print, your broadcast, radio, TV is the best way to show those successful campaigns for your advertisers. So as a reminder, we're going to record this and we can send you guys the recording in the deck after.
Awesome. Let's jump in. We're going to go ahead and start with revenue implications. And I put my skills to the test in preparing for this presentation. You'll see the masterpiece that I created that clearly shows the difference between a seller who is selling $500 a month campaigns versus a seller that's going out there with $1,500 a month campaigns, and how quickly it compounds and how quickly you can see a difference. What we wanted to really drive home, in this portion for you guys was obviously the best time to sell is when you're hot. And we always want to help enable both you and your sellers and your team, to be able to get this done in a timely fashion. We want you to really lean on us as well. We aren't only helping you sell digital, we're helping you sell anything that is within your portfolio. That includes, owned and operated print. It doesn't matter. And not to offer a shameless plug right out of the gates, but our proposal tool also allows you to incorporate that. So while you're putting proposals together or prospecting, remember, it doesn't have to just be digital. We just want to help you compound that revenue and get through the rest of the year on the right foot and start off next year even stronger.
That's a pretty significant difference right there. And I mean, I think the compounding revenue, just that $1,000 additional ask each month, look how quickly that can grow over the span of a year. So don't be afraid to ask for those extra dollars, but take these early campaigns, these early sales really seriously, because early on we're scratching and clawing to build that book of business from the very beginning. We're trying to get as much product knowledge as possible and staying hungry, making one extra call a day, securing those appointments and asking for sales. Building that foundation is what is going to make your life that much easier and that much more profitable in the future. So be thinking about your advertisers early on, be doing the work up front to, be consultative for them, and, send them things that aren't salesy, right? Remind them that you're thinking about them with, industry updates, or here's something cool that I read that, made me think of you. And just make sure you continue to stay kind of close to their business goals and needs, and that we're optimizing our campaigns and that we're making recommendations based on their KPIs and their ultimate objectives.
Great points, Chris. You know, something that Chris just mentioned is something that you're going to hear throughout this presentation, and it's the importance of having consistent conversations throughout the lifetime of these campaigns. You don't have to save like a retention conversation for the 11th month of the campaign. And you certainly don't have to save an upsell conversation for that time either. So we'll continue to reiterate that throughout, but I want you to keep that in mind. As we switch to, oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say, all the work you're doing up front right now is gonna make those conversations at the end of the campaign, all those reporting conversations along the way, the upsell, the renewal, the retention is going to be much easier because of all the relationship building that you're doing up front.
And as we switch to this next slide, as I mentioned earlier, I want you guys to just look at your screen and find that chat button real quick, because we're going to start off hot with a pop quiz. The winner, whoever submits the correct answer first in the chat, is going to win a cup of coffee on me. So what, like an $8 Starbucks gift card? I'll email it to you right afterwards. And again, don't enter into the chat until we tell you to. So think about it for a second. We're going to start backwards here. We want to talk about retention first, because it's that time of year, right? Like I said before, a lot of us start thinking about renewals, in Q4, looking at next year. But B, because it's something that we need to make sure everybody's talking about more consistently. So let's start with retention. All right, here's the question, guys. Get ready to type it into the chat. What do you think the retention rate is for an advertiser who uses 4 or more products? And again, we're not talking just digital. This could be 4 owned and operated products. But what do you think the retention rate is for an advertiser who uses 4 or more products? I'll give it a second, maybe a little slow to start, but I'll give you a hint in just a minute if it looks like we need one. All right, I'm going to give you a hint. So the retention rate of a 1 product campaign is about 92%. What do you think the retention rate of a 4+ product campaign is? I'm going to give it one more minute, and then we're going to go ahead and move to the next slide. And whoever gets that answer correct, like I said, will get a Starbucks gift card emailed to them. All right, Chris, you want to move on to the next?
Yeah, we have some answers coming in here on the Q&A. I think the chat is disabled, so these are
perfect.
Q&A there.
Excellent.
Alicia hit that nail on the head right from the very beginning there. 98% for those 4+ products in a marketing mix.
Great job, Alicia. That's perfect. So that speaks volumes to the importance of, an omni-channel or a full funnel approach. And 4 products: print, owned and operated, device ID, email blast. There you go. It's it doesn't have to be this intricate campaign in order to check those boxes. And again, as we mentioned 2 or 3 times already, retention should not be a dreaded conversation. I think a lot of us forget to plan for it. And maybe the day before, when we're looking at our calendars for tomorrow, we realize, all right, that renewal conversation is scheduled. Now what? If you're having this conversation throughout the lifetime of the campaign, it's going to make it so much easier to continue retaining business and then essentially upselling. So, we're really trying to encourage you to shift your thinking and realize that you need to have that conversation more consistently. Talk about the future. Here we are, getting closer to the holidays. Talk about the seasonal trends that are coming up. Talk about your special print issues that are maybe a quarter away. Creative changes that could help, and new locations that we can add to certain audiences.
Yeah, and that's the 4 or more products really is helping you to provide that advertiser with a well-rounded marketing approach, right? That full funnel strategy, omni-channel strategy, whatever you want to call it. We're basically helping them identify leads at every step of the sales funnel. So, you're providing them with the top funnel awareness and branding. You're helping to nurture them through their consideration phase and their research phase, you're then following them around and, continuing to retarget them until they take a meaningful action, like a sale. This 4+ product renewal rate right here isn't just for, for our business and for keeping our sales desks profitable, but it is successful for the advertiser, right? Because they have multiple touch points with their consumer. They can continue to nurture those leads until they take an action that they want them to take on the website. And we're able to also attribute and tie back tracking when we run these multiple products too. When we're able to tell them the impact that an awareness tactic like display or streaming TV has on a bottom funnel tactic like organic SEO or paid search.
And keep in mind, we're here to help you with some of the more difficult conversations as well. We're always happy to get that read-only access for Google Analytics or dive in on a reporting call to see, like Chris mentioned, the trends, which products are, affecting, whether it's positively or negatively, other products that are running, and how can we make shifts for a more successful campaign. That's something that we are, all well versed in over here, and we want to make sure they're supporting you when we can.
And what's great about that multi-product approach is that the revenue starts to stack up even more, right? When you're running those multiple products, that average deal size is going to increase. Thus, the compounding interest looks better on your desk for the year. So you want to be planning up front, right? You want to be planning for that renewal from the very beginning. And a lot of that success is going to happen in the pre-sale research and planning process. So planning ahead and potentially working backward from a start date is going to be key. You want to ask that advertiser, obviously, what their goals are. Make sure you're listening to them, doing that discovery call, maybe having more than one discovery call if you need more information to put together that correct media mix. Work backwards from a start date, right? When do they want to get started? Are there any important dates that are coming up quickly here? When does their new fiscal year start? And then work yourself backwards from there. The pre-sale process, how long is that going to take? Are you doing any research on competitors or target audiences or top geos? What type of access are we trying to get? Do we need Facebook access? Do we need Google Analytics access? Are we thinking ahead and creating a pixel and getting that placed on the advertiser's website before we launch a campaign, so that pixel can start to build a retargeting audience for us? These are all things that are assuming the sale up front, but setting you up for success, right? And getting you potentially avoiding some difficult conversations down the road. So really thinking about turnaround times, and getting ahead of reporting calls, renewals, all of that is going to be key to retaining and upselling these advertisers down the line.
Keep in mind also, if any of these terms that Chris and myself are throwing out there, pixels, Google Analytics, call tracking, if those are terms that may make you more nervous than anything else, that's okay. That's, again, what we're here for. Reach out to your account manager. We have so many training resources, and we're able to help speak to your clients, with your assistance, to make sure that everybody's on the same, page when it comes to how we can make these campaigns even stronger.
Exactly right. And we're continuing a little bit on this, but this is post-sale, right? This is the campaign goes live. Now we need to circle back to those initial conversations we had about what success means to the advertiser. Did we identify specific North Star metrics that we need to report on every month to show them that this campaign is performing well for them, that they're seeing the return that they expected? And, again, that going back to those initial CNAs and those initial conversations about their business, really identifying what that main KPI is, what that main metric is that we need to be optimizing toward or reporting on is key. Usually that is something, pretty significant, like a sale or a lead gen, a phone call, a form fill, or maybe somebody walking into their brick and mortar location. So you need to be able to kind of talk back to that initial conversation and tell that story about how the campaign has performed and how each of these tactics played a role in getting us to that metric right there. So be proactive, get out in front of highlights and insights they should be aware of, potential issues, making sure that you're being proactive, not reactive, that you're consultative, that you're, an extension of their marketing department, right? You're helping them to kind of understand what's working, what's not working, where we should potentially test, and, some growth opportunities for the future.
Yeah. And the point that I want to reiterate here is maintaining that relationship. Don't run away from the reporting call. That's, an important call to have on a preferably monthly basis with your advertisers to make sure that things are going according to plan and identifying when they're not. There's someone on this call, I could see it in the attendee list, who has just done such a phenomenal job with asking the difficult questions, which helps to get, ahead of, concerns or maybe campaign issues down the line, and also adjusting those North Star metrics, as Chris mentioned just a few minutes ago. The KPIs that we put in place last month might not be the same KPIs that your advertiser has in mind 2 months down the road. So make sure you're challenging that and having those conversations that assure that we are running these campaigns as successfully as possible.
And get comfortable with UI.marketing, right? You need to be able to navigate that and, dig deeper into some of the campaign highlights to be able to pull out those nuggets of information and those success stories that you can give back to that advertiser to help continue to build that rapport and build that relationship and ultimately build that trust, which at the end of the campaign is going to be very, very helpful for that renewal. All right, we're salespeople. We're just getting our sales goals this month. We may, we all have those high goals, right? But we're all here to, hit those goals because we want to make some money. So if you have a goal that is high, or you're running your own business and you've got your monthly sales goals in mind, and it's seeming a little bit out of reach, don't worry. Keep calm and upsell on. You want to nurture and grow that core business that you spent so much time developing and creating those relationships with, right? Upselling is the easiest way to get to your goal. Those are current advertisers that trust you. And if you bring them new ideas, whether it's related to share of voice or new products they should be testing, bringing them growth opportunities to help unlock some of those other revenue streams for that advertiser and that overall business is going to get you to your goal a lot quicker. So think about things like new products or services that that the advertiser may not be advertising with you, right? So like from an automotive standpoint, are we handling their services department? Are we handling their used car sales department? Think education. Are we promoting all of the different degree programs they have? And, are there any other additional opportunities for them to use you for advertising? Recruitment is huge these days. How are they hiring new people to come work for them? What are those other revenue streams that they can unlock? And then work with your account manager and your account coordinator to confirm share of voice, but also use the UI.marketing proposal tool to see if you can figure out share of voice yourself. We've got that new feature in there, which tells you what your current budget is based and your share of voice is based on the geo targeting and the audience targeting that you've selected. You can get an idea of how much share of voice your advertiser has, and then recommend some aggressive upsells or aggressive increases in those spends to help them steal some more share of voice and to stay top of mind with their target audience.
I love it, Chris. Guys, if there's one slide to screenshot in this entire presentation, this is it. These questions or these bullets are so helpful when you're having these conversations, like I said, hopefully throughout the entire year. And if not then now. Are the correct people on the call? That's a question so many of us forget to ask. I'm guilty of it all the time. I'm gonna have to relay information again. I have to send a follow-up email to the right folks afterwards. Get the right people on the call in the first place. That's going to help make that upsell even easier. As Chris mentioned, is there room for share of voice growth? I can bet you that there is, especially with November and December right around the corner. Everybody knows that advertising gets pretty crazy in the coming weeks, and it's only going to continue to do so. So, like I mentioned, screenshot this and make sure you're asking yourself these questions as you're preparing for calls. And I challenge you to start incorporating these on a monthly basis. Don't wait until Q4 next time. A couple of other things that I like to think about are, what are the specific holidays that are coming up? Is there anything in Q1 of next year that we can start getting ahead of? And just maybe asking yourself these questions in addition to your advertisers is just as important.
This is a tough conversation to have, right? You're asking for more money from your advertiser. But again, going back to that relationship you've built, those other touch points that you've had with them that weren't asking for more money is going to make this a much easier conversation. And they trust you, right? And they trust your recommendations. They know that you're taking an analytical eye to this and you're thinking of their business when making these recommendations. We can only give it we can only just ask for the upsell. And that's the key, right? Asking for the sale.
Also, I want to just point out, Chris is not one to ever toot his own horn, so I'm going to do it for him. He is a huge part of our Ad Seller and Select division, and he's the one that's actually on these calls figuring out where there's more opportunity. This is what he does all day long. So now that there's a face to the name, if there wasn't already, just know if you have some of those existing campaigns that is one upsell away from being an Ad Seller and Select or something close, this is your guy. He's on these calls all day, and both of us are obviously happy to help you push things across the finish line. But one of the most important resources we have is right here on this call. You're welcome, Chris.
Oh man, yeah, we'll just move on from that. I mean, all I can say is really that the team behind me makes all the difference. So I'm not going to take any credit for that, but thanks, Caroline.
Hey, we actually just had a really relevant question come through in the Q&A that I want to take a second to answer. It's from an anonymous attendee, and it was, how do you combat advertisers who are nervous about the current economic climate? This is a great question. I think that it's something that's top of mind for lots of folks. And it's quite frankly something that we talked a lot about during COVID as well. A point that we made very consistently back then and also now is that now is the time to put some gas on the fire. Now is the time to push the pedal, right? Like, we really want to make sure that you're able to stand out against your competition in times of uncertainty. And this is a good time to be pitching that. We can kind of put our money where our mouth is, right? When we're asking for these upsells, and we can estimate the clicks and the cost per clicks that you're going to get for certain campaigns and put data behind these asks. So knowing that they're data-driven requests should help make those conversations a little easier for you and your advertisers.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good studies out there too by much more brainiac people than you and I, Caroline, but they're showing, they show you data on when people are advertising during crises, right? And, staying top of mind, keeping your brand present during downtimes gives you an advantage when we get back on track, right? When the economy gets back on track. I think, that's an important thing to mention to them, that they want to remain present and make sure that your consumers and your leads know that you're still there, that you're not going anywhere. The other side of that, I think, is being able to really track every dollar you spend, right? We hear that more and more these days, where I need to be able to tell you the return on every single dollar I spend, whether it's a 2-time ROAS or a 10-time return on ad spend. That's where digital is huge and incredibly valuable because of the tracking capabilities we have and the ability for us to tie back actual return on investment for the advertiser, to give them those deeper insights into the campaign performance, to help them, navigate these crazy times and, stay afloat and continue to grow.
Yeah. Specializing in small and medium-sized businesses, it really allows us to get into the weeds with these guys, and make sure that we're spending, their dollars appropriately, reallocating where it's necessary. So again, I suggest any of you guys who are wondering the same thing, reach out to your account managers, get some strategy calls on the books, and let us guide you through some of the more difficult conversations that are taking place right now.
It's tough times. We're feeling that on our side too. People are nervous about spending, and we have to kind of comfort them a little bit and be those additional resources that they may be lacking. The extension of the marketing department, the extension of the research department, the extension of the creative department, right? How can you bring additional value to that advertiser, as a gesture of good faith for their partnership and their continued spending during these times? All right, let's close it again here, Caroline. We gotta ask for that sale again, right? But how do we come back to this conversation with data and educated recommendations on where we were at with the campaign, where we've come so far, and where we still want to go, and making sure that we're obviously always selling, always talking about that renewal, but bringing new ideas to the table, right? What were they missing this past campaign that we should try this year? And why should they consider adding this new product? Or why should they consider expanding their share of voice in this market? Bringing those ideas and making those recommendations is going to help you, continue to maintain that relationship and close those renewals. And then, what's new in their industry? Are you helping to kind of educate them on what we're seeing from a digital marketing standpoint or from just a consumer standpoint? Where are people spending their time? What type of media behaviors or media habits are changing? Are there different things that we can bring to the table just to keep them top of mind, and to let them know that we care about them and that we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that we understand this landscape as best as possible, and that we can give them the best opportunities to succeed with their advertising.
Perfectly said, Chris. As we've reiterated throughout, the easiest way to close it again is to have consistent conversations with your advertiser. And don't have to save the upsell to the end of the year. You don't have to save the renewal conversation till the end of the year. And from there, the campaign will continue closing itself. I think new ideas are imperative. We've recently come out with a couple of new products that, allows for new ideas. As Chris mentioned, we can help you pull share of voice, which will also spark new ideas. And you should always be, probably most importantly, diving into your product mix as well as to what can, help work as these cohesive campaigns. I strongly suggest for anybody on this call who doesn't do it already, staying on top of what's new in this industry isn't that hard anymore. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and my feed is filled with, tech and digital updates all the time. And I feel like it's helping me on my biweeklies, my sales calls, when I can actually, compare real stats, when I can cite real sources. Just doing your own research makes you such a stronger seller, and want to make sure you're doing that all the time.
There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of free tools that you can use, right? There's Google Analytics. There's, our device ID technology is so cool. And pulling some of those audience insight reports or demo insight reports is just a free service that you can provide to your advertiser that is going to help the overall campaign in the long run. So I would just encourage you to lean on your AMs and ACs here at Accelerant, lean on those free tools that you have, and continue to maintain those conversations. Like Caroline said, consistent conversation is going to make this renewal process so much easier, because you've been asking about when you need to present to them the new plan. You've been talking to them about when their new fiscal year starts or important times of the year. You're prepared, you're ready, and we're planning ahead, and we're not going to skip a beat. We're not going to go dark and lose momentum. Planning ahead is going to be the key to this renewal, and all that relationship building is huge. Challenge them too.
Thanks.
I think this is where I put my challenger hat on a little bit too. It's like, I'm going to challenge you to think outside the box more, or to be a little bit more aggressive in this tactic because the share of voice is limited. Whatever it might be, challenging them to think more about their advertising and marketing is going to be key.
Thank you guys so much for joining today. Again, this was the third part, the final part of our 3-part series, where we were able to talk about retention, renewal, and upsells. It was strategically timed. Just hopefully this gives you the information you need to go onto your calls and ask for those upsells, ask for those renewals. But again, lean on us. We're here for you, and we want to make sure that we're able to assist you, whatever you need.
Thanks, everybody.